Alright. Basics on how to do Shun offense. Like, this isn't meant as a fully comprehensive guide on everything the character can do. Just kind of some basics to get you started playing him. To sort of kick it off, I'll run through some of the basic moves. These are moves that you're kind of building your neutral game around, just to kind of start off with. Especially at 0 drinks, these are ones that you're really going to want to use a good amount. Just like everybody else, jab. His jab is not bad. Pretty standard, 12 frame. +2 on block, +5 on hit. He's got strings off of it. However, at low drinks, they're not that great. He's got PPPK, which does end in an EX middle into that mid. The advantage to this one is if the third hit hits counter hit, the K is guaranteed. But overall, I wouldn't recommend using this string. He also has PP4P at low drinks. This is all high, so this can get 2P'd. This is also a string I wouldn't recommend using a lot, except in combos. Realistically, stick to jab. He has those strings. Show him sometimes, especially because at higher drinks he gets another option off of here. But generally, you're going to want to stick to jab. Jab enables a lot of stuff. For elbows, Shun doesn't have a traditional elbow. This is a problem with the character. It's not the end of the world. He has 3 moves that sort of function as an elbow, all with their own advantages and disadvantages. 6P is this little hip check. The advantage that this move gives is it has 2 follow-up options, so he can do 6PP. That is delayable, which is really nice, because if somebody sees that they've blocked or evaded a 6P, you can hold that and follow up. If either 6P or the 6PP follow-up hit counter hit, you have Nitaku. So fishing for counter hits with this is great. The range is not bad. It looks like it doesn't go very far, but this round start range is sort of where it can hit from. If you go back much more than that, it's going to miss. Yeah, about right here. Not the best range, but pretty deceptively far for what it looks like. His other... Oh, and the other option he has is he can do 6P into drink with PKG. Again, the more you're doing 6PP or 6P delayed P, the less the opponent's going to want to press on you there. The more you can go into that drink. This also has follow-ups, but don't worry about that now. Like, you can do 6P into drink and kind of sneak that in. I don't necessarily recommend drinking right the opponent's face, but if they're scared to press on 6P, you have the option. His other elbow is this, 3P. This move goes insanely far. You can backdash from round start and still clip the opponent with it. If you're in open stance from about the same range, it's going to miss, so it does reach a little bit farther in close stance than open. But generally speaking, about 2 backdashes away, this move can hit from. This gets follow-ups later, but at 0 drinks, it doesn't have anything. However, much like 6P, if it hits counter hit, you do have Nitaku, and it moves Shun forward. So even if you're far, this here. Even if you're far, you can still hit with like a 6P or something. You can't threaten throw if you're hitting it from max range, but you can threaten with other attacks. Shun's other... one thing. Both of those are 15 frames, so they're both not ideal as elbows. So if we set the CPU to block and jab, you're going to lose in this. You can't set up the same kind of jab-elbow mix-up that characters with better elbows can. So where Like Jackie can do P6P, Shun can't. That's where the final option comes in, which is 1P. This move is bad as an elbow. It is a special low instead of a mid, so it can be crouched or standing blocked. It's -6 on hit, so it's worse. It's also pretty negative on block, I believe -8. Oh, -10. You can space it out so it's not low throwable at -10, but very unsafe. Even if you get counter hit with this, you're only +2. So you get very little reward on this move. It does have advantages though. It is 14 frames, where his elbows are 15. It also goes very low. So you can win the jab elbow. You can win the jab elbow exchange with it. Also, it doesn't go quite as far as 3P, but it also has very, very good range. So from about the same range as 3P, it's going to whiff, but from about right here, it'll hit. So this is more of a harassment tool than a proper elbow, but it can fit some of the situations that an elbow can cover for you. And it does more damage than 2P, so it can win against 2P. It serves its purpose. It's a move you want to use, you do not want to overuse. Also, it does have a follow-up in 1PK. 1PK is very risky and very punishable. The K follow-up is slow at almost half a second. Experienced players are going to see this coming and block it, but especially if the 1P hits counter hit, if an opponent tries to press on you after you've done 1P, you can sometimes sneak the K in. For starting off with the character, I'd recommend against using it. It can be a crutch, especially at low levels. But especially if you see somebody evading after they've been hit with a 1P, you can use it sometimes. This is very delayable. Alright, next, sidekicks. So Shun has a 3K. On its own, not that remarkable. So 16 frames. The nice thing about this is, because Shun's elbows are also unique in that they don't give frame advantage when they hit crouching, the 3K is nice because on a crouching opponent, it will stand them up and you'll be +8. So that does enable Nitaku situations where you can actually threaten the throw, whereas his elbows don't, just to kind of demonstrate that. So if I'm hitting with either of my other elbow options, the opponent stands up, but I'm still at negative frames, whereas the 3K stands them up and they're +8. So I can get a throw in if they don't mash. So sidekick serves a really useful advantage there in that it can force a crouching opponent to stand up, and you can put them into a strike throw mix-up. Shun also has 4 3P plus K, which I wouldn't classify as a sidekick, but it can serve similar purpose in that it's the same speed, it's a mid, and it forces a stagger. And it forces a stagger whether you hit them crouching or standing. It is throwable if the opponent kind of is breaking at regular speed. If they're mashing as fast as possible, it's not. And if they don't mash at all, your throw is going to whiff if you do it with fastest timing. It's not as useful as the 3K, but it can serve kind of a similar purpose of it's a 16 frame move. You can throw it out in neutral. If it hits, you get the ability to kind of mix up the opponent with something. Also, I need to go back to sidekick for a second because I forgot to mention this. The other nice thing about sidekick is it has a follow-up. The follow-up's a high, so it'll lose to 2P mashing, but if the opponent tries to elbow you or punch you or throw you after you've done 3K and they've blocked it, you can throw that in. This will give you a short combo, which is nice. It's good to represent. You will eat some 2Ps doing it, or you will eat it being evaded a couple times, but throwing it out, delaying it, will kind of keep the opponent on their toes and give you the advantage to cash out some damage. All right. A couple additional moves. So before I kind of talk about additional moves, those moves are sort of key to building your offense around, especially because you have delayable options, you do have some string options, and you have options to counter hit for damage. None of these things are very committal, except for one PK. So the good thing is there, if something is getting blocked, you can either delay and move on to the next hit of the string, or you can take more defensive actions. So if my 6P is blocked, I'm at a frame advantage where I can fuzzy, or I can evade, or I can continue the string. So I can do this, and I can deal with the throw or the elbow. I'm not unsafe enough to the point where I can't do anything. Or I can follow it up, and then I can take the advantage. Especially near the wall, things get more threatening. But overall, I mean, the idea of being intentional with your offense means you're not putting yourself in a position where you're getting punished. You can kind of easily throw something out and then make a decision to continue your offense and beat the opponent counterattacking, or you can do a more defensive move to also kind of take your turn back. All right, last couple of moves that sort of fit a niche purpose. 1KK is kind of the classic annoying Shun move. That's this one. This move is very unsafe. So if either hit is blocked, the opponent can punish it. Just to demonstrate that. Yeah, so minus 18. If the opponent blocks the second move. Yeah, minus 13. In either case, it's punishable, but if the opponent sees that coming and crouch blocks it, you can eat quite a bit of damage. You have the ability to sort of mess with their punishment in that either hit, you can hit G to cancel. This does not prevent you from taking damage for this move, but depending on how you mix in those, the falling down, it could make it more difficult for the opponent to kind of time out their punishment. Generally speaking, if it gets blocked, I recommend falling, but just to put it into perspective, if you do 1KKG, Wolf can get a back turn Burning Hammer on you. So be careful with the move, but it's also a low that hits surprisingly far, that knocks down. So about from right about here. Yeah. So similar range to 6P, slightly shorter than 6P, but from the round start position, you can hit with this. So this does give you the ability to kind of harass from range. You can do jab into this and take the knockdown and get control. Also, if you are near the wall with this and you're a little off axis to the wall, you can kind of see like my front leg is closer to the wall than my back leg. That'll bounce the opponent into the wall, which is good because that guarantees follow-up damage. So suddenly a low is doing almost 50 or a little over 40 damage near the wall. So that makes it a lot more threatening in general. Even out mid stage, you can get that follow-up, but the opponent can tech it. Next, kick plus guard. On its own, this move's not the best. It's kind of short range in a character with a lot of far-reaching moves. The advantage here is 1KK is a half circle that the opponent would have to evade to Shun's back on. And K plus G is a half circular that the opponent would have to evade to his front on. So these moves build on each other very well, because it messes with the opponent's ability to evade you reliably. You can do stance shenanigans with this move. For now, I don't want to get into stance stuff. Stances are good with Shun, and he has a couple of really strong options from them. But if you're just kind of starting off with the character, I wouldn't use them too much. To go into stance, though, you hold K plus G after you do the move. If you don't want to go into stance, you just press them. And then lastly, kind of in terms of basic moves, is 6K plus G. This is a bit slow, so it's 22 frames. But the advantage here is on, I think, frame 4, the attack is going to evade lows. So if I do this at a -8, I can cleanly beat a 2P. And if, as an example, Akira's using 3P plus K to threaten, even pretty late, even after I start to see it come out, I can use 6K plus K. You can also get a 4-3 plus K, 4-3P plus K follow-up. So it's not the most like damaging move. It's not the most reward, but it does give you the ability to deal with the opponent using 2P to spam you or other lows. And again, you can do it pretty late because it's on about the 4th frame where it will actually evade the low. So you can really kind of keep the opponent from wanting to abuse those moves by throwing that out when you think they're going to 2P. All right. Covering a couple basic launchers. Shun has 4 I want to talk about. He has more, but just to kind of cover the basics. 1P plus K is good. That's our 15 frame punish. It's a high. You can kind of think of this as the equivalent to like Akira's 4-6P or Lao's or Go's 4-6P in that it's not the biggest combo, but you can punish moves with this. So like Jeffrey's 6K, you can punish with 1P plus K. It's also good to just throw out sometimes. It's relatively safe. -6. So you're in Nitaku, but it's not punishable. It's not the worst frame disadvantage in the world. Next is 8K plus G. This move is riskier. This is punishable. I believe -13, -12. So this is jab punishable, or you can eat a throw. But the reward on this one is actually pretty high. So with Revo, there's new combo routes off of this that are plus drinks and will do about 72 damage on most of the cast. I'll touch on combos at the end just to kind of show some damage options. But the other nice thing about this move is you can get 5 drinks off of it very easily. So if you hit this, you can do 6P plus K. And that will not do good damage. It's low damage. You're trading drinks for damage. But getting 5 drinks, especially early on, is very useful. Even getting 1 to 2 drinks off a combo is good if you can manage it. So a much riskier move to throw out, but also one that gives significant reward, either good damage, especially at low drinks where Shun struggles, or getting drinks where Shun can kind of struggle. Lastly, we have a counter hit launcher. This move is 16 frames, so this is 2 from crouch, 3P. It comes out in 16 frames, but if you're buffering this from standing by doing 3-3P, you can enter it that way. That'll add an extra frame. So this is the same, effectively the same speed as 8K plus G. And it only works on counter hit. If you hit it neutral, if you hit a normal hit, you are +4, but you're not getting the same reward. So this move is also nice, especially if you've gotten the counter hit on elbow. You can throw this out to deal with the Bare from the opponent, and you can cash that out for a pretty comparable damage, around 70, 65 to 70. And then the last launcher is Shun, which I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole of drinks yet, but that's 236p, that, or 236pp. Very good, fast launcher, special mid, so it can be blocked crouching, but very good as a whiff punish, very good damage. This is one of those character defining tools similar to 1KK, in that it's a launcher you can throw out. You can throw it out a lot pretty safely without too much worry. I mean, it is -8. The follow-up helps, and if they are ducking the first hit, they get hit by the second, which gives you advantage. But overall, it's one of those moves that you can throw out quite a bit without too much risk, especially having the follow-up. But if you are abusing it, or you're dealing with an opponent that knows how to deal with the matchup, you can get punished for it. So you need to be a little bit careful with it, but it has good range. It comes out quickly. It leads to good damage, just to kind of show you what you can do with it. So 83 damage for Shun is pretty solid. This really enables him to kind of play the game a lot better than he is at low drinks. And then from there, let me get rid of my drink so I can kind of demonstrate. Finishing the thought, Shun has other launching options. I don't want to go into them now because some of them are weird, some of them are very specific. Those are good ones to start with. And then from there, you can kind of build or experiment or check out the combo pages and see how to work some of the other ones in. Just kind of looking at basic tools, those are the ones I would cover. All right, lastly, we'll talk about drinks because that's central to the character. First rule is you need to get them. Shun is better now at low drinks than he was before. And he gets drinks faster than he did before. So drinks are not as crucial as they were in Final Showdown, or it doesn't feel like quite the same feast or famine sort of setup for the character. But that being said, drinks enable more moves, which I'll touch on some of the key breakpoints. And then on top of that, they give him a damage buff. So that combo I showed off Chawan and doing 83 damage is going to do, I think, about 110 at max strengths. It's not an insignificant damage boost. And while I won't get into specifics, if you get to certain drink milestones, it enables moves to work better than it did at low drink milestones. So getting drinks is good. If you're in the 15 range, you don't have to prioritize it anymore. If you're under 10, I would still kind of recommend trying to get drinks as much as possible. There's a few ways to do it. Most reliable are going to be throws. Our neutral throw gives 3. That's this one. And 6/6 P plus G gives 4, which is this one. So, as a Shun player, you're basically mixing up between a forward and a neutral throw. That's your key throw mix-up. The opponent's going to have to guess which one of those two you're doing. If you need just a little bit of damage, you can mix in a back throw. I wouldn't recommend it, though. But yeah, neutral and forward throw are drink positive. Those are going to be great for you. The other one I mentioned earlier is off 8 kg. We can do 6 P plus K. That gives 5. Some opponents can tech that, or some characters can tech that and get to Shun before he's finished drinking, so you need to be a little bit careful about that, but generally speaking, you can get 5 very consistently off of that 8K plus G launch. The last thing you're going to want to do is, or the other thing you can look at doing is, after you get a knockdown, you can sneak in a drink. There's 2 just kind of standing ways to drink. There's P plus K plus G, that's this. And then there's 6 P plus K plus G, which is that. P plus K plus G is overall faster. 6P plus K plus G gets the drink and shun faster. So the counter goes up earlier in the animation. 6P plus K plus G also has follow-ups. We don't have to talk about those for now. Just, there is a slight difference between them, but if you're just kind of in the middle of the match using these, you can generally use them kind of interchangeably. Though off knockdown, I would recommend 6P plus K plus G, because if the opponent does tech roll, you can threaten with that punch and just kind of keep them off you. Alright, so kind of key milestones for drinks. If you're taking one thing away, get to 10. Once you hit 10, you have everything Shun can do. But along the way, you're going to hit certain milestones, so there's a couple ones to call out, but generally, the even numbers are where you want to shoot for. So at 4 drinks, we get 2 really useful things. We get the follow-up to that PP4B string I mentioned earlier. This one. The last hit is a mid. You can also do it from 4 PP. That will launch on counter hit if the last hit hits counter hit. So if you do this and then delay it. But generally speaking, this is a combo tool. So this converts into slightly more damage on any of his combos. The other one he has is 3 PPK. I'll warn you, 2 things. One, if you don't cancel it correctly, you fall on the ground and lose a drink, which is not ideal. Also, no matter what, that K follow-up, that'll only combo if the second hit hits counter hit. It's slow enough that it can be blocked or evaded, and then you are either on the ground or on the ground in stance with frame disadvantage. So I would stick to 3 PP for now. This basically works similar to 6 PP in that you're throwing out an elbow move from pretty good range with a follow-up that combos naturally. That's pretty hit confirmable. And if that second hits counter hit, so if we set the opponent up like this, you don't have Nitaku, but you are +3. So if the opponent likes to challenge off 3P, off a blocked 3P, you can take advantage. Alright, at 6 you get a couple of things. So you get 4 3P plus K into a follow-up. That. This, when I mentioned 4 3P plus K earlier as kind of a side quick equivalent, this makes it more attractive. One, you get a delayable follow-up. That delayable follow-up is mid, and it always knocks down. And if you hit it near the wall, you can get guaranteed follow-up damage. So, it takes what was already a pretty good move, and it makes it better. Especially at the end of combos, especially near the wall. But even just in neutral, it's good. The other thing we get at 6 drinks to mention are Chawan. I talked about it earlier. We only get the first hit at 6. So you... Sorry, I have 10 drinks here. We only can do this at 6. There are follow-ups off of it. You can still do good damage with that combo, but we don't get the second hit yet. And then we also get a better forward throw than what we had. So I mentioned 6P plus G, this one for drinking. Shun also has a side swap forward throw with just 6P plus G, which gives okay damage. There are some options here, but now we get a better version of that in 426P plus G. It does a little bit of damage on its own. It leaves you at +13 back turn instead of +11. So you get more guaranteed consistent follow-ups. When you hit 6 and especially 8 drinks, if you're going for damage, this is your best option off a throw, because you can do this just as an example. At 8 drinks, we get 2 big things, but I don't really want to talk about one of them too much. We get the follow-up on Chawan. which having a delayable follow-up is useful. That delayable follow-up is also half circular. It is high, though. But overall, it tends to make the move safer, especially if an opponent's crouching. It also leads to better damage. It turns Cho'On from a really good move into just a very, very good move and kind of central to Shun's offense. We also get the drink spending moves. Shun has 3 of these. I don't want to talk about them too much because if you're starting off, adding more drink management, I think is just going to be confusing. But know that 8 is the point where you get those. I definitely wouldn't use them when you get to 8 drinks. I'd wait until you get higher. But those are things you can look up there. 214 P plus K, 214 KK, and 214 P. And then lastly, at 10 drinks, there's 2 things we get here. So we get KK, 2PK. You can throw this out sometimes. The nice thing is KK 2P is not bad to at least sneak in 1 hit, and adding the follow-up is nice. Generally, this move is more of a gimmick than super useful, but it's there. The real thing we get at 10 drinks is we change the math on our throw game. So rather than being a neutral forward mix-up, it's now a forward-backward mix-up, and the benefit is a lot better. We get this new back throw, which is a half circle back P plus G, which does solid damage, much more than his other options, and is drink positive. He gets 4 drinks off of it. Last thing I'll touch on is post round. So critical to drink management is after you win a round, you also want to get in as many drinks as possible. There's essentially 3 routes that you should be trying to do. One of them, you can do this if you basically finish with a move and then stop immediately. So if you finish with 1K, you don't want to finish 1KK. It won't work. Or if you finish with a jab or anything like that. But you can go into sit down stance, which is 2P plus K plus G, and drink twice. That's plus 6 drinks. That's the best option that's consistently possible. But if you're not sure you're going to get that, or you kind of overcommitted on a move, then you can move on to the next option, which is you can do this in any order. Starting with a drink has its advantages, because if you finish with this, it might be hard to get the next move correctly. But you'll do drink, 3P4, and then drink again. I didn't talk about the back turn stance stuff because that's, again, more complicated than I want to start with. But with 3P, or any of the moves that kind of finish with this uppercut, so that includes like 4PP, before the move comes out, you can hit 4, and Shun will go into his back turn stance this. And he'll take 2 drinks on the way there. So your round finish is drink, 3P4, drink. That's plus 4 drinks. That's very consistent. As long as you're not doing a bunch of stuff after the knockout or ring out, you should be able to get that. The last option is a lot more niche, and it's primarily going to do you good against the wall. But if you finish and hit the opponent into the wall, something like this, or this, you can sneak in a 6P plus K, and then a follow-up drink. You can do that into this, and then take another drink. I wouldn't worry about that one for now, but it exists. There's options and opportunities to sneak that in after a round. Another simple one after a round is if you finish the opponent with jab or sidekick, they're going to just kind of stand there and then slowly fall over. You can definitely sneak it in there. I honestly would stick to 3P4, drink, or doing those in a different order. It's consistent, it's very easy to do. But if you are finding yourself finishing with jab or something very simple, go ahead and go into sit and drink. If nothing else, you'll get one in. You'll get one in for sure and get +3. That's not bad. And then lastly, I'll touch on, I'm just going to reset drinks. But lastly, just kind of touching on combos. Shun has a lot of opportunity to optimize his combos. You can keep it super simple at the beginning and use one of 3 finishers. And these are pretty universal. So if you do 1P plus K, you can do jab, PP4, P. That works off just about anything. It is not the most damage. It might be at low drinks, but it's not the most damage. If you get that up to 4 drinks too, you can do PP, 4 PP. Again, not the most damage, but consistent damage. Very easy to do. And very easy to react and just kind of start matching out the P string. You can even skip the first jab a lot of the time and just... You're sacrificing some damage on an optimal combo, but you're kind of guaranteeing that you get damage, which I would say at lower play is going to do you a lot of good. Also, if you're under 4 drinks or even above, you can do PP4P, P plus K plus D, and skip in a drink. So, good thing to do. Again, works on anything. You might have to time it a little bit funny sometimes. Other option is 4/6. There's a 4/6 PPP string. That less damage, and most of the time, those are interchangeable in combos. But if it's a little easier to do, or sometimes on heavier characters, you might want to opt for that. And I didn't mention it, but at 6 drinks, you get follow-ups, so you can do into P plus K at the end for a little bit more. Again, it still does less damage than PP4PP, but might be a little easier to do sometimes, especially if you're a little late on the confirm. You can throw it out. And then lastly, when you hit to 6 drinks, you can just start doing 4-3P plus KP. 4-3P plus KP is also very nice because even after the combo's done, you can throw it out and get techable damage. Not guaranteed to hit. If the opponent likes to tech roll, that's going to miss them. If they don't like to tech roll, you can really make them regret that decision by sneaking in a lot of extra damage. Yeah. So, those are the basics on Shun combos. There is more you can do, and combos are listed on VFTC. But my recommendation, honestly, is focus on recognizing when you can use it and then converting into consistent damage. And then you can build on optimization as you go. So, overall, that's just like a baseline of at least how I approach the character and some of his basic tools in offense. Shun has a lot of silly stuff you can build on with all of that. He has stances. He has 4 debatably pretty good stances that you're going to want to use. He has options that cancel into stances. He can go into those stances with plus frames. I wouldn't worry about all of that for now. Like, all of that is good and serves a purpose, especially when you're playing players who know how to block and defend really effectively. But for now, I think that stuff is more confusing and more of a crutch than kind of relying on some of the basic tools and building up from there. So once you start to manage that, everything else kind of falls into place over time. Oh, sorry. One other move to mention, I always forget about it because it's been buffed in Robo, is if you do his wall rising K, that, I recommend it against it a little bit because it goes into stance. And I was just saying don't go into stance. But you go into stance at +5. And you can get out of stance pretty easily by hitting guard or 6P+G twice to roll away. It's a mid, so it's not something the opponent can duck. It used to be a high. That's why I said it got buffed. Also, a lot of air moves are just kind of weird to evade because while you're doing the jumping part, it's not evadable. It can only be evaded once you hit the button. Which is why Akira's 9K was always so scary, because it's hard to time the evade correctly. Not a move I would abuse, especially if you're not comfortable in his laying down stance yet, but keep in mind, it can be threatening, especially near the wall, where getting hit by it, well, it shitballs flat. And I forgot one other move. Again, a little careful about this move. Can be a crutch, but at 6 strings, Shun also gets PPKK. This was a string I mentioned way at the beginning. This turn, Shun punch strings into more in his favor and more of an attractive choice. Because suddenly, your third hit can be a mid, or it can be a low. Or it can be a high, but you shouldn't use that. The downside here is Shun doesn't really get anything if this third hit hits a crouching opponent. Like, it can be crouch blocked, it's an EX mid. So a good opponent should, if they get hit twice, they should move into crouch to block those. But having the ability to hit PP into KK, into his 1KK, is very useful when an opponent doesn't necessarily know what's going on. Alright, I'll wrap it up there before I start going off on a bunch of other random stuff that the character can do that's fun. But like I said, just the starting point to kind of understand the basics of the character, how they work, how to kind of structure offense purposefully. So you're not necessarily putting yourself at high risk. You'll get punished for stuff, but it's not necessarily about avoiding risk. It's about managing the risk and when you're committing on things so that once you make the decision to do something risky, you can start prepping yourself either to eat the punishment or making a conscious effort to defend afterwards. And the more you're doing that, the more you're going to be able to deal with like aggressive players and frankly defensive players. Like, that's going to be kind of your core building block. So, all right, thanks. Let me know if you have any questions.